Hey everyone, welcome to Oasis Church Online. Thank you for joining us. Our service is about to begin, and since we are kicking off a brand new series aptly titled Staycation, we thought this next song, all about appreciating just being at home, would be the perfect way to start things off. It's actually one of Don Amero's original songs, and so here he is to start things off with Wouldn't Be Home.
If it didn't make you think of your mama's kitchen, front porch sound of them crickets cricking, where the summers went fast and came back slow. If it don't take you back to the night when you picked her up in that hand-me-down car that was barely running, first time that she didn't tell you no. It wouldn't be home if it didn't make you miss the way it used to be. If it wasn't for the people that are hard to meet. If it didn't have a story down every road, trust me, I know. It wouldn't be home if it didn't make you think about some old flame. If she ever got around to a new last name, makes you wonder what might've could've turned out different. It wouldn't be home if it didn't take you back to the last game that you played in. Burn on a bourbon first time you tasted, little white church that your family prayed in, and they still go. It wouldn't be home if it didn't make you miss the way it used to be. If it wasn't for the people hard to leave. If it didn't have a story down every road, trust me, I know. It wouldn't be home if it didn't make you wanna drive past the school, laugh about all the stupid things you used to do, makes you wanna take a U-turn and live it. It wouldn't be home if it wasn't that place that you couldn't wait to leave. If it wasn't where every out there road still leads. It wouldn't be home if it didn't make you miss the way it used to be. If it wasn't for the people hard to leave. If it didn't have a story down every road. It wouldn't be home if it didn't make you wanna go back inside that house when your granddad's still alive, makes you proud of the accent and where you get it. It wouldn't be home if it didn't. 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 It wouldn't be home if it didn't.
Well, hey, and welcome once again to Oasis Church Online. My name is Daryl. I'm one of the pastors here, and we are so glad that you're joining us today. We are kicking off our summer collection of messages titled Staycation. And many of you probably are sticking pretty close to home this summer and or have spent several weeks and months leading up to now sticking close to home. And the question in seasons like that is, how do we make the most of things right where we're at? And that's what this series is all about. And one of our pastors, Troy Selly, is going to be up in about 20 minutes to talk more about that. But first, a few things going on around Oasis to let you know about. Maybe you've been tuning in for a while now, but you've never taken that step of connection into community. We would love for you to reach out to us and join a life group or a serving team. You can email info@oasischurch.ca or go to our website and you can find all the info you need about life groups and serving teams there. Also, coming up this summer, Oasis once again is going to be a host site for the Global Leadership Summit, and this event provides world-class leadership training from some well-known speakers that provides valuable resources, valuable insight, valuable teaching for a wide range of people, whether you're in the marketplace, a youth leader, a school teacher. There is some great content. You can see the list of speakers on our website. And typically we'd be hosting this in person here at our building, but it will likely once again be an online event. And it's taking place August 5th to 6th. We get a host site early bird rate of $99. It's regular $229. And so you can find the link on our website to register for that. Right now, we're gonna start off by singing some songs together. So whether you're in your house, your apartment, your cabin, your car, or you're going for a walk down the Hart Trail, sing it out real loud. Here we go.
Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes are open to see, my heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. And just one word, you hear what's broken inside me. And just one word, and you revive every dream. And just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. And just one touch, my eyes are open to see, my heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. Oh. I will believe in greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, God Almighty reigns. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. For the Lord God Almighty reigns. Hallelujah. Holy, holy are you, Lord God Almighty. Worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb. You are holy, holy are you, Lord God Almighty. Worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb. In the darkness, we were waiting without hope and without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. And the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born, and the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth the Lord shall not kneel, shall not faint. By his blood and in his name, in his freedom I am free. For silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Yeah. I believe, but help my unbelief. You understand me. You understand me. Help me reach the faith that's underneath. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Yeah. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm mom to Walter. He's 6 years old, and Eleanor, she's 3. My husband James and I have been attending Oasis for 5 years. We definitely all miss our Sunday morning routine of attending church in person, but it has been so great being able to consistently connect to the church by watching online, and it has allowed us to make the best of circumstance and keep developing our faith in a really uncertain time. And while it's been valuable for me and for my husband, it's been especially valuable for our kids. It warms my heart knowing they are growing their relationship with Christ, and it gives us parents lots of hope during the difficult times.
So every month we get a swag bag with all our materials and activities for the month. And then each Sunday there's an exciting and engaging video that they can watch to go with what they're learning. And it's really fun to see them singing along and then to hear throughout the week the little bits they talk about. You can hear they're really learning, and we often help them practice the verse of the month by asking them to pray the current verse before mealtime. It's not necessarily a traditional blessing for the food, but it really helps them to memorize and just be willing to speak out the word. So that's something we really look forward to every month.
Each Sunday as well, Walter's group leader dedicates the Sunday morning to call in on Zoom, and it makes him feel a little more engaged with other church folks without physically attending church. For kids, I think it's huge, especially for their mental health. With all other activities canceled, I'm glad there's church events and programs that they can constantly be leaning on and looking forward to, and that they have been able to keep their relationship with their leaders.
In a season where so much has been taken away and there's not much for kids to look forward to, seeing them look forward to all the Oasis Kids stuff has been really refreshing. There's been special events to attend. They love the Pajama Jam, where we had a weekend of activities, including making a fort. These type of things have helped us have things to do with them, in addition to homeschooling that we do with them. They even just look forward to going to pick up the swag bags every month. It's a real highlight for them. Our family can't thank this children's ministry enough for all the work and thought they are putting in to help out our kids and reach out to others. I believe this ministry will keep growing and more kids will benefit from all this love that Oasis has poured into them. We're really looking forward to the day that we can be back again. But until then, we're just thankful that we have a church that has kept going and has kept pouring into our kids in such a unique way.
Well, online church and kids online church, though maybe not our ideal plan, have provided some opportunities that we may never have thought of. And every single week throughout this pandemic, we've had the opportunity to support many churches with their kids programming as well. And really, Stephanie and James and their family are just one story of so many that we've heard from this past year. And it's not just kids, but in our student ministry as well, there have been some very cool stories. And something that we're excited about coming up at the end of this summer, the end of August, just for high school students, we're doing a mission trip, a local mission trip here, serving the city of Winnipeg. We're gonna be putting on some events, partnering with some local organizations, and just loving the people of our city. And it's just a really cool opportunity for our high school students to serve our city together. And so all the information for that is on our website. The deadline to apply for that is this week. It's June 30th. And so get the information and apply on our website today. And again, all of this stuff is possible because your consistent generosity allows us to have programming like this, to do events like this, and to reach our city, to reach our community, to reach families. And so thank you so much. And right now we have the chance to give back to God. If you're a guest here, if this is one of your first times joining us, please don't feel like you need to participate in this part of the service. But for Oasis Church family, know that you are supporting programming that is reaching people, just like in that video that you saw, and there's so many things going on. And if you didn't get a chance to see the other videos in this series, they're worth a watch on YouTube. They just give a glimpse of what our church has been up to this past year. But be encouraged that God is still at work and the church is still very much alive and well. And so we're going to give a moment for those who want to give right now. Thanks again so much for your giving.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to summer here at Oasis. And I know school is out, or it will be in the next few days for all of you, and the sun is shining, and I'm sure by now you have your vacation time on the calendar at work. Hey, did you know that the word vacation was actually coined somewhere around the time of 1875 to 1900, somewhere in there? Yeah, the Smithsonian Institute actually tells us that there was a young preacher by the name of William H. Murray, and in the summer of 1869, or just before that, he wrote a guidebook about the Adirondack Mountains. And however he did it, he painted this picture of this Eden-like setting that people had to visit. And so in the summer of 1869, people flocked to the mountainsides. Now, you have to remember that this is a time when exploring the wilderness was really unknown. It could be very dangerous. And so it was best left to the professionals who kind of knew what they were doing. But over time, travel to the area by rail and by stagecoach improved, and they started developing the area for visitors. And soon enough, it was New Yorkers who started talking about vacating their city homes for their lakeside summer retreats. And just like that, the British word holiday was replaced with the word vacation. Now, here's the dilemma that you and I find ourselves in today. What if you can't vacate where you are for where you want to be, even if it would be just for a few weeks? Well, I hope that you are going to enjoy a staycation this summer. And I hope you're going to take the time to explore our beautiful province of Manitoba, or wherever it is that you are joining us from today. And maybe you're going to pick up a new activity that you never even knew about before. It could be camping or hiking, or just the projects you're working on in your backyard, or a family games night. Maybe you're going to pick up a new hobby, or you're going to read more books than you've ever read before. Maybe you've been supporting local businesses and you have found your new favorite restaurant. Or maybe you were on a quest this summer to find the best ice cream place around. And if you are on that quest, would you please invite me to join you? Well, whatever it is, I hope you are making the most of where we are right now. And that's what this series, Staycation, is going to be all about. It's going to be about making the most of things right where you're at. And to kick off this series today, I want to address a question that I think all of us are asking right now. What if I'm stuck somewhere, I don't want to be right now. I mean, this is the last place in the world that I want to be. So I don't want to make the most of here. If I have anything to say about it, I'm not going to be here for very long. And I think that describes to a T the season that we've been in now for the last, 18 months or so. We just don't want to be here right now. And I know for some of us, there are things that we want to get back to. Now, I'm going to share with you a couple of pictures here. I guarantee these are going to melt your heart. Watch this. This is my little niece, Callie, and this is a picture of her when she was newborn back in January. And this is a picture of her now. She's just over 5 months old. And you know what? I haven't seen her in person yet because my brother and my sister-in-law live in Calgary and we haven't been allowed to travel there. So I want to get back to this. I want to get back to family and friends being together. Now, I know how this is going to go. I'm going to drive 13 plus hours to Calgary. I'm going to get to hold her for all of 30 seconds before my wife and my daughter take over, but that is 100% worth it. I want to get back to this. So there are things that we want to get back to, and then there are things that we want to move forward into, right? Maybe you want to move your business forward, or maybe, I have no idea what dating has been like in this season, but maybe you have a relationship you want to move forward. Or maybe you want to move your schooling forward or your career forward. Or maybe you're waiting on a phone call that you are hoping is going to change your life, but you've been told that the hiring process or the adoption process or the immigration process, all of that has been put on hold for the time being. You see, this isn't just another COVID lockdown series. Sometime in our life, all of us are going to find a place where we just feel like we're stuck. We don't want to be here, but we're stuck spinning our tires. And I'm going to say it like this. We are expending sideways energy. And what I mean by that is we're finding things to fill the time, but we just feel like we're not going anywhere. And it's in these times where we are going to start asking some questions. And I'm going to call these questions when and what questions. Now, these are questions like, when is the waiting ever going to end? When am I going to get married? When are we going to have kids? When am I going to get the job offer? When am I going to receive my university acceptance letter or the scholarship confirmation? You know, I'm having this big fight with my brother or my sister or with a spouse or with a friend. When is this ever going to end? And I'm going to shape all of these questions into one big one and say it like this. When am I going to get what I'm waiting for? And isn't it true that until we get the answers to these when and what questions, it just feels like life is on pause. It just feels like we're stuck. Now, thankfully, we're not the only ones who have ever wrestled with these kind of questions. And in the Old Testament, there is a prophet by the name of Isaiah, and he does just such a masterful job of putting words to these frustrations and these kind of feelings. Now, in the Old Testament, the prophets, Isaiah and many others, they would often speak, or this is what they did, they would speak for God to God's people, and they would most often bring words of wisdom or words of warning. So often they were warning God's people that they were drifting away from the relationship that God wanted to have with them. And they would bring words of wisdom as to how they could restore that relationship with God. And then they would also warn them that there would be consequences if they would continue down the path of walking away from God that they were currently on. So in the story that we're going to look at today, Isaiah and some of these other prophets, they have already warned the nation of Israel that because they turned away from God, a judgment is coming. And that judgment is coming in the form of what we know as the exile. And what that means is that the nation of Babylon is actually going to come and conquer Israel and take the people into captivity in Babylon, into exile in Babylon. Now, in the scripture that we're going to read, this hasn't happened yet, but Isaiah is looking forward to the day when it does. He's looking into the future, and he is anticipating the frustrations and the feelings that the people of Israel are going to have, and he is going to speak into those frustrations and those feelings. And you know what? what the people of Israel felt then is so much like we are feeling today when we ask this question, when am I going to get what I'm waiting for? And so let's take a look at what Isaiah says in chapter 40, verse 27. He says, "Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord? My cause is disregarded by my God." That's kind of a funny question for Isaiah to ask them, isn't it? Because when the exile finally happens, Babylon is going to come and Jerusalem is going to be completely destroyed. The wall is going to be torn down. The temple of God is going to be looted and burned. And the people are going to be taken away into this exile for at least 70 years. That's quite the staycation now, isn't it? So I think if we look at this, it's just fair that the people of God would feel like they can complain. Why does it feel like God doesn't see us anymore? Why does it feel like God has abandoned us? And you know, in these times when we are asking, when am I going to get what I'm waiting for? We can ask many of these same questions. Let me pose some of these questions to you. Why do you feel like God doesn't see what you're going through right now? Or why do you feel like God is ignoring your situation? Or why do you feel like God has forgotten about you? And the answer to that really is quite simple, right? There's something I'm waiting on, but I haven't received it yet. Maybe you're waiting on Mr. or Mrs. Right, or maybe you're waiting for the next $1,000 to show up in your bank account. Maybe you're waiting for that promotion at work, or you're waiting for that positive pregnancy test, or you're waiting for the call from the doctor to say the cancer is gone. Or maybe you're waiting for them to say they're sorry. You feel like God is ignoring you because there is something that you're waiting on. And I really want you to hear this. There's something you're waiting on that you are convinced you need. There's something that you're waiting on that you are convinced will solve all of your problems. There's something you are convinced you need that will move you into the next season of your life. And the longer you wait, the more focused you become on these whens and these whats. And that's a really dangerous place to be. Here's why. Because when you're focused on the whens and the whats, what you're waiting on will become what you're hoping in. Now, it's okay to want situations to turn out a certain way. It's okay to have dreams and desires, but when those become the object of your hope, that's a really dangerous place to be. And here's why. First of all, we don't always get what we want out of life, now do we? I mean, this is just a reality of this life that we all know to be true. It was the Apostle Paul who said in 2 Corinthians that he had a thorn in the flesh that he begged God to take away. And God actually said, no. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. We'll look at that a little bit more in a minute. Right? Sometimes what we think is best for us isn't actually what we need. And sometimes we don't get what we want because that is the result of living in a broken and sinful world. But here's the real problem, is that when we have all our hopes pinned in the whens and the whats, and yet we live with this reality that we don't always get what we want, it's impossible to reconcile these two realities. And the result is disillusionment and frustration and anger, just all kinds of really negative emotions. So we don't always get what we want out of life. But second, and I think this one is even more interesting, there's a good chance you will get what you're waiting on. Now, the reason that this is so dangerous is because you're going to have this moment where you think, I've got it. My problem is solved. All of my hopes are fulfilled. But I guarantee it won't be very long until you start to see that what you had been hoping in, it doesn't actually fulfill all of your expectations. And you're going to come to this point where you have to admit that you were wrong about what you thought you needed. You know, maybe you've met the guy or the girl of your dreams, but as you get to know them, they got some imperfections that you weren't quite ready for. Or maybe that $1,000 did show up in your bank account, but you know how this goes. Oh man, like $2,000 would have put us over the top, would have been so much better. Or maybe you got that promotion at work and now you're realizing, I wasn't ready for all the responsibility that came along with this. I don't know if we have any tennis fans joining us today, but we have to go back to a time when a player by the name of John McEnroe was number one in the world. And he was actually number one in singles and doubles. He'd won Wimbledon, he'd won the US Open. In this season of his life, he had an unprecedented perfect year, they call it. He had 82 victories and only 3 losses. So here's a guy who has reached the top of his career. He is at the top of the mountain. He has spent his whole life striving for this goal and hoping for number one and all that it would bring. And in his autobiography, John McEnroe writes about that season, and he says, it all still left him feeling empty. And that's the danger of putting our hopes in whens and whats. Now, Isaiah is going to speak into this, so let's keep going and see what he says. He says, do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. Here's the thing. The people that Isaiah is talking to, they have heard this before, okay? They've heard the stories of creation. They have heard how God rescued the nation of Israel from Egypt. They've heard how God took the nation of Israel and led them into the promised land. But watch what Isaiah is doing here. This is so genius because he's telling them who God is. And I think if we could have heard the response from the people of Israel at that time, I think it would have gone something like this. This is my guess at how they would have responded. They would have said, Isaiah, just a time out here. You know what? We're not talking about who God is right now. We're talking about our problems. We're talking about how do we get out of this place that we just don't want to be. And that is exactly the problem, isn't it? Now, I have a pair of binoculars here. I brought these along today. And if you know binoculars, you know that simply put, they are made to make objects that look far away to the naked eye appear a whole bunch closer. And so these particular pair, they're a 10 power, and so they're supposed to make faraway objects appear 10 times closer. But here's the thing with binoculars. Now, when you try to look at things that are a little bit too close, it's impossible. They take up the whole field of view. Everything's blurry. I can't even tell what I'm looking at because it's just a little piece of the bigger thing. But every pair of binoculars has this little dial on top, and it's just called the focus dial. And if I turn the focus dial and just change what I'm looking at a little bit, all of a sudden, objects that seem so far away, they all of a sudden become crystal clear. And I think that's exactly what Isaiah is trying to tell us. We got to turn the dial. We got to change the object of our focus here. God is not nearly as far away as we think he is. But when we're so focused on the whens and the whats, no wonder life is blurry and frustrating for us. It's the wrong place for our hope. Because you see, I think this is what Isaiah is trying to tell us. You don't put your hope in whens and whats. You put your hope in a who. Okay, I know, and I admit that sounds exactly like something you would read in a Dr. Seuss book, but that also means you are never going to forget this truth that we are learning here today. You don't put your hopes in whens and whats. You put your hope in a who. Your hope doesn't belong in the answer to the question of when am I going to get what I'm waiting on. Your hope belongs in God, in a relationship with the creator of the universe. Now, I understand if at first glance you're a little bit skeptical about this idea. You know, you're trying to tell me that just by changing where I put my hope from these whens and whats, and you know what? I still think I need these things and I still haven't received them. But you want me to change my focus to this God who seems so far away, especially in this place that I find myself right now. And you're telling me that's going to change my today and my tomorrow and the next day and the day after that? Yes, actually, that's exactly what I hope you will see, and I hope you'll experience this today. You see, because hopes in whens and whats. If you are joining us today and you are still hoping in whens and whats, I'm going to tell you something about yourself that maybe you don't even realize, or maybe you do and you've been hiding it from the people around you, or maybe they already know, even if you haven't admitted it yet. But if you are still hoping in whens and whats, I guarantee that today you feel exhausted. You feel completely empty. You are just drained. The word I want to use here is weary. And the reason is simple. Waiting on whens and whats, it just wears us out. It just wears us out emotionally and mentally, and that seeps into our physical life and our spiritual life. But listen, something very tangible happens when we change our focus and we put all of our hope in a relationship with God the Father, with the creator of the universe. This is the promise that God gives us through Isaiah. Listen to what he says. It says he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. I love this illustration right here because I have 3 kids at home. I have 2 boys, 17 and 19 years old. I know exactly how much energy and strength young men have. But Isaiah is saying here is that even they grow weary. Even they run out of gas. No one can go forever on their own strength. And so listen to this promise right here. It says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Now, this line right here, those who hope in the Lord, sometimes that's also translated to say those who wait on the Lord. And this is the hinge. This is everything that Isaiah is trying to tell us right here. The best word picture that I've ever heard to explain what it means to hope in God, to wait on the Lord, is to think of a thief or a robber laying on the side of the road waiting for someone to come by. They're waiting, aren't they? But it's this eager, leaning forward, anticipatory kind of waiting. Something is about to happen and I am going to be ready. Now, we all are going to have these days and these seasons of our life when it just feels like there's nothing we can do, that we can't change anything, and what we need just doesn't seem to be coming, and we are weary and we are worn out. But when we change the focus of our hope and we put our hope in God, it changes everything. You see, hopes in whens and whats, they require the results that we want. And we already talked about that. We don't always get what we want, and when we do, it doesn't always fulfill our expectations, right? So hopes and whens and whats require results. But now watch this. Hope in God, it's anchored in the relationship that he wants to have with us. So not in results, it's all in a person. It's all in the relationship that he wants to have with us. And so in our waiting, I would actually say especially in our waiting, God's promise to us is that there will be strength coming from him for us to keep going. And you know what? That promise and that relationship that God wants with his people, we see it in the Old Testament. We see it when God brings his people out of the exile and back into the promised land. And it would be several hundred years later, but God would go even further to rescue all of us. He would go as far as possible, as far as was needed to show us why we can have such confidence and why we can put all our hope in him. This is how Paul describes that in Romans 5. He says, you see, at just the right time, I love that. God is in charge of when things will happen. And it says, when we were still powerless, so we're in this state where we can do nothing, and he says, Christ died for the ungodly. That is you and that is me. Jesus came to show us the fullness, to show us all of who God the Father really is. Jesus actually says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. That is incredible. And we know that Jesus dies on the cross as a sacrifice for us. But what is most important here is that he rose from the grave. And this is the ultimate example of love and forgiveness, and it is the anchor and the reason for our hope. Jesus gives us exactly what we need when we need it the most. And so we can anchor all of our hope in a relationship with God the Father through what Jesus Christ has done for us. Because God is this Father who knows exactly what we need and when we need it. So to wrap this all up today, this is all about changing our focus and changing where we put our hope, right? So it's a choice every day. I want to give us a prayer that you can pray. I would encourage you to do this actually in the morning. Add it to your routine of whatever you do to spend time with God first thing in the morning. It'll take 15 seconds, and I know it is going to change your life. It is so simple. This prayer goes like this. Jesus, I know I'll be tempted today to put my hope in whens and whats. We're just going to confess that. So instead, I'm choosing to put my hope in you, and I am depending on your strength to carry me through this day. This is our declaration that we are putting our hope in Jesus and not in whens and whats. Well, our team is going to come back, and they're going to close us out today with a song called He Is. And it is my prayer for all of us that today and tomorrow and every day, no matter where we find ourselves, that we will not put our hope in whens and whats, but we will put our hope in Jesus. Because as you're going to hear in this song, all that you're needing, He is. Let me pray for us. Father, I thank you that you give us promises of strength like you gave to us through Isaiah today. And we know, we confess to you that in these times when we feel lost, when we feel like you are far away, it is our nature to turn to the whens and the whats, to turn to material things or to turn to other people and put all our hope in them. But I pray today that you will refocus us and just help us to point all of our hope towards you, to put all of our hope in you. We know that we can have full confidence in that hope because of what Jesus has done for us. And so I pray for each and every one of us, Father, that today and tomorrow and the day after that we will see, that we will experience that strength you promised moving through us as we face challenges and as we celebrate the highs in life as well. We thank you, Father, for all these things. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you're troubled, heavy-hearted, come to Jesus and find your peace. If you're run down, empty-handed, come to Jesus and find your strength. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is mending the broken, bearing the burdens, all that you're needing. He is. If you're wandering in the darkness, come to Jesus and find your way. If you want freedom, need forgiveness, come to Jesus and find His grace. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weak. the Prince of Peace, author and maker of everything, defender, deliverer, King of Kings. He is, helper and healer forevermore, savior and shelter through every storm, my refuge, redeemer and Lord of Lords. He is, child of heaven and son of man, provider, protector, the great I am, Alpha, Omega, beginning and end. He is, help for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is, mending the broken, bearing the burdens, all that you're needing. He is, all that you're needing. He is.
Well, every day we get to choose where we will put our hope. And we can put that hope in the whens and the whats and the things that we think we need, or we can choose to receive this promise from God today that when we put our hope in Him, when we put our hope in His Son, Jesus, He will provide the strength we need. He will provide everything that we need. If you want to talk to somebody about putting your hope in Jesus, there are great staff and volunteers in our chat right now. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Now go in the strength that is ours in Jesus.